Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is Sandra McQuain. She's the Executive Director of England Airpark, and she has a lot to report about air travel, about growth, and we're celebrating her newly appointed position to the State Board of Commerce and Industry. So lots to talk about. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't think that they could have made a better appointee. I think that you're going to bring so much to this position. Before we start talking about all England and everything that's happening, tell us about this appointment that you received.
Sure. No, thank you. And thank you for the kind words on that. So this is, it's called the Louisiana State Board of Commerce and Industry. And this is the board. It's a 24-member board, and they provide oversight to the Louisiana Department of Economic Development and oversee and approve all the applications for the state's tax incentive programs for new businesses, expanding businesses. So some of those programs, people may have heard of things like industrial tax exemption programs. There's a quality jobs credit. There's enterprise zone credits. And so we review the applications that are presented by LED staff and by companies, make sure they've checked all the boxes and that it's an appropriate project. And then we approve the incentives. There's also a local component for many of these programs, but we're the first step. And so it's a 24-member board, and I'm the only one representing Central Louisiana. So I'm really proud and excited to have our voice on this board. And right now I'm only one of 3 women serving on the board.
Only one of 3 women.
Yes, ma'am.
And so let's talk about Senator Luneau and the role that he played in actuating this appointment.
Yes, no, Senator Luneau gets a tremendous amount of credit. He's really taken it an opportunity to look at all the state boards and commissions and making sure there's good geographic representation and trying to bring that voice into the appointment process. So he called me and said, I think this would be a good board for you. Would you be willing to serve? If we can make this happen, I'd like to have Central Louisiana represented. I said, that would be great. And so he started the ball rolling, and then the governor was here for another program we're going to talk about in a minute. But I was very honored. He pulled me aside and asked me if I would accept the appointment if it was offered, and I said yes. So all that's in motion, and that was fast-tracked. It happened in, less than a week. I had the appointment and actually attended my first board meeting. Mm-hmm. And then, but part of this process is when the legislature reconvenes next March, I will have to go through Senate confirmation.
So did that make your brain go tilt, tilt, tilt? Because, were you expecting that you'd be a part of this board, such an important piece to our state and really to Central Louisiana?
Yeah, no, it was not something I was actively pursuing. I hadn't even thought about raising my hand for any kind of board or commission. I was very fortunate during the COVID crisis to serve on the transportation task force that was part of the Resilient Louisiana Commission, and it was an honor when Secretary Wilson called and invited me to do that, but I wasn't really actively looking for anything, so I was very, very excited when Senator Luneau called. I was not expecting that phone call.
Now, so the governor was here talking about a program, an aviation program that LSUA is taking on, and that is going to really be a central piece probably for people from all across, I think, the country.
Right. So what's happening at LSUA is starting in January, they will be offering a 4-year bachelor's degree program in professional aviation, aviation sciences, aviation management, and you also have the option to get a commercial pilot's license.
Wow.
And how this program, they'd been thinking about doing this for a while, and Dr. Carell invited me to come in, and he said, look, can you help us maybe get this off the ground? And I always laugh. We started having a conversation, and we said, okay, well, is it just about this program, or what are we really trying to do here? And we started saying, well, really the question we're trying to figure out is, how do we attract, how do we, where are jobs, where are industries that have needs for employees? And we know there's a need over the next 10 years for about 200,000 commercial pilots. Great, that can be great, but how do we create the opportunities here? And is there an ability to use this program as a launch pad for maybe something bigger? And through those conversations, we invited in Dr. Jimmy Sawtelle at Central Louisiana Technical Community College, and we call it the ACE Initiative was born. And so the ACE Initiative stands for Aviation, Careers, and Education Initiative. And it's an economic development strategy that is being led and developed by England Airpark, LSUA, and CLTCC.
Wow.
And so there are 4 pillars to the program. Pillar 1 was getting within the LSUA system the 4-year degree program, the ability to train to be a commercial pilot. England helped recruit Acadian Aviation, which is an FAA-approved flight school,
Wow.
to base operations here, and they have faculty and aircraft here, so they do both private training as well as now they're going to serve as faculty for this program. The second pillar of this program is we're taking a hangar at England Airpark and we're going to convert it into what we call the ACE Aviation Center. And it will be a world-class training facility
Wow.
that will allow anyone interested in a career in the aviation field, whether that's on the grounds, working on a grounds crew, working in an air traffic control tower, maybe you're working for TSA, maybe you're repairing aircraft, flying airplanes, but it will be a world-class training center. The third pillar is with CLTCC bringing the FAA-approved A&P mechanics program into their curriculum, and that school, that degree will be offered at the ACE Aviation Center. There's a need over the next 10 years for over 200,000 aircraft mechanics. There's 60,000 jobs available right now. But Boeing even predicts...
How did we get here? Why is there such a need?
Well, just A&P mechanics, it's a growing industry across the country, across the globe, and you have too many retirements. It's like a lot of industries. You got baby boomers retiring. You've got to be trained and certified. They're great paying jobs. I mean, they're $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year jobs. But you just got to have training, and the schools that are out there aren't putting the graduates out fast enough. So like I said, the third pillar is going to be bringing the A&P school here. And then the fourth pillar will eventually be constructing a wide-body hangar. And why that's important is if we're going to attract someone in the aviation industry that does maintenance, repair, or overhaul of aircraft, whether they paint the aircraft, whether they take care of the engines or anything like that, a facility that they can actually work in. So we believe that if we'll go ahead and start building this trained workforce, we have a higher than average probability of attracting an aviation employer into this region. And so it's a different strategy. Sometimes you sort of wait for the employer to show up, and then you go through Fast Start and a number of other programs to build that workforce really quickly, and you build the facilities. And our thought was, with the robust infrastructure at Alexandria International, we should have an aviation industry here. But we'll probably never be able to get that over the fence without going ahead and making the investment to develop the workforce. We know that the graduates and participants in these programs, there are jobs out there for them. There are jobs for them in Louisiana. There's not a lot of jobs for them in central Louisiana right now, but we believe by the time we start really putting graduate classes, graduates on the street, we're going to have a better than average chance of having that industry here for them to work for.
So when is the curriculum starting? Is it starting like in the fall semester, or is there going to be a lag time?
No, for LSUA's program starts in January. You can enroll right now in Introduction to Aerospace and begin your general studies, but the full program will launch there in January. And we had an open house at England with LSUA, and we had over 60 students that showed up. They came from Homa, all over the state, and said, I'm really interested in a career in aviation. I'm intrigued about the idea of becoming a pilot. So we believe enrollment will be extremely strong. So that gets that started. And then the England Authority, the England Airpark, we're going to begin starting the design work, preliminary engineering on the ACE Aviation Center this year as well, with the goal that will be completed and we can have the A&P program hopefully up and running 2024. We're really, we're within 2 years of having that happen, and then we're close to beginning the design work on the wide body hangar.
Absolutely. Hold that thought. We're going to take a break here, but when we come back, we'll talk about air travel and all of the things that are opening up. Stay on point. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to the OPT Network. Our guest this morning is Sandra McQuain. She's the Executive Director of England Airpark, and I always love visiting with you because you are one of those incredibly smart women who is boots on the ground getting it done. When we talk about this aviation program, this has not been in the making for years at all.
Correct.
This is something that you've got somebody got pregnant with the idea and we started the birthing process.
Yeah. No, it was literally the first conversation that Dr. Krell and I had was about 20 months ago. And I always laugh. I mean, we've kind of pointed fingers about who gets the credit for initiating the idea. But Dr. Krell, he called that first meeting and said, "Can you help us maybe get this launched?" And I'm like, I don't know how, and I don't know what I can do to help him. I need to think about this. And I kind of put it in that pile that maybe I'll think about that again, maybe I won't. And he called me back a few weeks later and he was like, "Well, all right.
Did you think about it?
Yeah, and I was like, okay, it's got serious. We got to come up with a plan. And so we just sort of, again, just started sitting around.
Did you see like this being actualized? Like, can we really do this?
We did, and really, especially once we brought Dr. Sawtelle in, and once I realized that LSUA was really committed, and I needed to I did need to help them. I needed to be a good partner to our higher education friends. And we just started doing research and realized, my gosh, look at the needs in the industry. And they weren't just pilots. And, we started thinking about, well, how do we make sure these pilots can get on the market where they can get jobs? And what can we do that's unique? What other things are out there? And as we started doing the research, we said, this could be doable. And then we started looking at our history where we've had interest from aviation industry. And yet we might get invited to the tournament, maybe we get on base, but we never could seem to score and land it. And you started realizing, what's the essence of why we come up short? And then it was literally just brainstorming and a couple good ideas. And, we have said, this is what can happen when smart people sort of gather around a table. We park our egos at the door and we just sort of throw two questions on the table. Why don't we have an aviation industry? And what are we as community leaders willing to do about this? And what are we willing to invest in and make it happen? And it just kind of, it bubbled up a few ideas. And then once it got legs and with the legislature, that was such an amazing process because it's a new program to LSUA. The legislature had to approve the fees for the program, and it was great. Senator Luna, once again, stepped up to sponsor it in the Senate, and then he reached out to Representative Harris, so we had a bipartisan team that led the effort. It was unanimous, and there's just so much enthusiasm, excitement, and belief in the program. The governor even came here to sign the bill. For the program. So, but that's kind of what happened. I don't think we ever thought we can't do it. We just finally said, if we're going to commit, we got to be all in. And I think what we've done the first 20 months is amazing, and what we have over the next 24 is really going to get it over the finish line.
And so you're talking about the people who came out from around the state, but we know that LSUA is creating a presence where people are coming from really literally around the world.
Around the world. What they have done there is remarkable. And, that's one of the things when my team and I are out, marketing the community, we talk about our higher education partners and the difference they're making. And, we are so fortunate when you think about, not only have LSUA as a four-year university and that amazing community and technical college with their beautiful downtown campus, but you have Louisiana College, which provides 4 years. And then Northwestern has their Alexandria branch on our campus at England, so we have immediate access, literally outside our door to Northwestern, and so it's a very powerful story when it comes to developing workforce.
So we can't talk about aviation and aviation training without talking about how people are getting back on airplanes.
Yes, ma'am.
What does that look
They're
and
back.
feel
Yay.
like?
We're excited. We've the uptick really started in May, and it no pun intended, but it really took off in June. Bad metaphors, but it really
those
did
are good metaphors.
They're great metaphors.
It took off in June.
It did, and it took off with a vengeance. So June, I did not have the June numbers from the different airlines yet, but I can tell you we have a metric we look at that's called TSA throughput, and it's how many passengers and folks that TSA screens. And in those numbers for June, we were above where we were in June of 2019. So when you look back 2 years pre-COVID, we'd already exceeded those numbers. We were about 109% of where we were 2 years ago. So we think that's a very good indicator. For us, what I think is driving up, there's just pent-up demand. We're finally starting to see an uptick in business travel again, conferences and conventions. And folks are, even just when you're making sales calls, people weren't allowing outsiders into their buildings. You couldn't have guests come in. And so now those restrictions at least have been loosened here as of late. So that's really driving it. And then our new Charlotte flight is doing extremely well.
Talk about that, because we talked about that the last time you were here. That was a new addition.
New addition, and I know in May we had over 1,000 passengers with one flight a day, so we're watching that route very carefully, but really starting to see a huge uptick in passengers going through the Charlotte hub.
So talk about the safety piece. Have people just really gotten more relaxed, that they're now ready to, I mean, obviously, because the flights are filled and people are traveling. Talk about the safety piece.
Yeah, I think they're getting much more comfortable. I mean, you have many more people who have been vaccinated, so they're just comfortable being in crowds and being on airplanes. We are still under, though, an executive order from the president. So if you are going through air travel, a couple things to know is you're required to have a mask in the terminal. You can't get through TSA without a mask. You can't board an aircraft without a mask. So air travel, public transportation still requires masking up. The other thing I'd remind folks of too is now that the airplanes are full again, and especially at AEX, you can't show up 15 minutes before your flight and clear security and still make your airplane. You've got to allow about an hour, especially right now in the morning at AEX. We have 4 flights between about 6:30 and 7:15 that go out, and those planes are full. So the security lines are a little bit long, and so you really do need to allow adequate time to get through the airport. So just come out early, get through security, relax. But it is very busy right now in all the airports across the country.
And what a blessing that is to see. Are there any plans to add any new routes?
Not at this point. And right now, the most important thing in the airline business, if you want the routes you have to be successful, what we're really focused on right now is capacity as opposed to routes. So United, we're still trying to get them back to their pre-COVID level in terms of 3 flights a day and things like that. So right now we're just trying to work on capacity. And of course, in the aviation industry and commercial airlines, you don't just snap a finger when the world starts getting ready to fly again. You have to prepare the fleet to come back into service. And you had a lot of folks that were flight crews and mechanics and things that just retired when the industry shut down and went through layoffs that aren't coming back. And so the airlines are slowly trying to catch up with the demand right now. But our focus is on capacity and increasing the schedule as opposed to a new market.
And I think everybody's trying to come back, and it takes those crews to be able to run every aspect of the airline.
You can't fly a plane without a pilot, it's taking the airlines a little bit of time to catch up. But American, they had an interesting strategy. When everything first started, they kind of made the bet. They thought the pandemic would be short-lived, so they didn't reduce their flights as much as some of the other airlines did. And I think the reason American is doing so well, and our May numbers for American, they were ahead of their May numbers of 2 years ago. I think they've been able to bring the fleet back a little faster than some of their counterparts because they didn't reduce as much as the others.
Wow. Sandra, thank you for all the work that you're doing, not just at England Airpark, but in our state. You are a central part and a great thinker, a great mind. And we are blessed to have you in our community and in our state, and we can't wait to see what's next.
Great,
Before you got to go, tell people how they can book their flight.
Book your flight, www.flyaex.org. So that's flyaex.org, and everything you need to connect to the airlines, book your rental cars, and everything you can launch right from there.
I hear it's harder to get rental cars now.
Rental cars have been the hardest part. The problem was of course, the rental car industry was hit so hard because of the air industry, and they just reduced their fleets, sold off their cars, and they just can't get them back fast enough with all the supply chain issues. So rental cars are very expensive right now. You can get them, but you're not getting a $20 a day deal anymore.
Wow. Well, we're glad that our economy is coming back. We're glad that AEX is back, and we want to remind you to go anywhere in the world. You can book your flight at aex.org. Sandra, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me again.
Indeed. Hey, everybody, stay on point. We're back right after this.